right, so here I am with the NBC News national correspondent, Miguel Almaguer. And how are you?
I'm really happy to be here with you. I'm super excited to answer some questions, and I'm thrilled to learn a little bit more about you.
And let's dive right in. So first, how have you liked working with NBC News?
Well, it's really been a dream of mine my entire career to work for NBC. I started off in local news in really small markets. My first job was in Salinas, which is a really small city. It was actually where my mom was born, and just a few hours away from where I went to college. So I was happy to be someplace that I had some familiarity with. I went to the city of Salinas a lot when I was a career. I always wanted to work for a network and for NBC in particular. Growing up, I was your age and I watched, the evening news quite often and interested in what those folks were doing for a living. And so this job is actually a dream of mine. I'm super happy to have it.
Have you seen an increase in breakthrough coronavirus cases?
So we've seen that from our own numbers that we count within NBC. We've got a medical team that reaches out to health departments across the country and does a lot of the footwork. And they've discovered that we've had tens of thousands of breakthrough cases. And the CDC has stopped actually counting breakthrough cases that don't end in hospitalization. But also anecdotally, I've got friends, I know a lot of people and colleagues who are fully vaccinated and who have tested positive. Like at NBC, even though I have never showed any symptoms or felt sick, I'm still tested on a regular basis. And a lot of my colleagues have tested positive and they've been fully vaccinated. So I know anecdotally, and the numbers also show that there have been more breakthrough cases.
Thank you. Have you been vaccinated?
Yeah, I've been fully vaccinated. I was lucky. I qualified for early vaccination as somebody who is not a first responder. I think they were an essential worker, for someone who goes into hospitals and reports the news. I don't think I was able to actually get vaccinated until I want to say it was February or March, but I was fully vaccinated in May. So I think if I did the math backwards, maybe April is when I got my first shot, but yeah, I'm fully vaccinated.
How helpful do you think that booster shots will be?
Well, I think it's a really interesting debate. It's something we've just been covering on nightly news and on the Today Show. The science says that booster shots will be needed. There's been a lot of experts recently who have kind of questioned whether they're really truly needed for the general population. Personally, I like to listen to both sides. And for people, especially those who are in high-risk jobs and older Americans, those who may be in nursing homes, I do think booster shots are probably a really good idea. There's been some question as to whether they're needed for the general public, but the CDC and the FDA certainly seem to be leaning towards that decision.
Thank you. And if you have both shots, and you get coronavirus, will it potentially wear off your vaccine, do you think?
No, so if you're fully vaccinated and you get a breakthrough infection, the likelihood of severe illness or going to the hospital has diminished, at least through the statistics, quite dramatically. And you may have a mild or very, even asymptomatic symptoms. But I think that the vaccine still offers you a layer of protection. And if you in fact have a breakthrough infection, you would also have antibodies from the infection that you got.
Do you think that there is science to this, but do you also think that, like you just said, the vaccine is preventing hospitalizations and as many breakthrough cases?
Yeah, the numbers really do show. And we saw several months ago when people were first getting vaccinated, the number of hospitalizations dropped dramatically. Now they're going back up because we're having another surge in cases, particularly among people who are unvaccinated. But I do think, and I've talked to so many doctors on the front lines, in addition to hearing the same people that you listen to, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Walensky at the CDC. All of the experts say that being fully vaccinated certainly has dropped the number of hospitalizations dramatically.
Yeah, and I was going to say, we both saw the interview with Lester Holt and Dr. Fauci the other night. But and I think Lester and both Dr. Fauci touched on the fact that if the unvaccinated Americans remain unvaccinated and don't get the vaccine, it could potentially make the vaccine, I don't know what's the correct term, but unusable or unaffected. Do you think that's true?
Mhm. I tend to believe kind of what the CDC with Dr. Fauci at the NIH and what the CDC has rolled out as evidence. I mean, these are people that are studying the vaccine every day. They're looking at the numbers in terms of hospitalizations for those who are fully vaccinated and those that are not, and including those that are partially vaccinated. So when the CDC relies on data to kind of inform the public, and we have access to that data, and our medical team who are former doctors, they're able to look and verify that data. But that those numbers seem to be holding up.
Very cool. Thank you. And finally, besides getting vaccinated, what do you think Americans and I guess the world can do to stop coronavirus?
Well, I think the stuff that was happening in the very beginning of the pandemic really was effective in terms of reducing the rate of transmission, at least for those that were following the advice. In addition to being fully vaccinated, these organizations continue to recommend people to socially distance, to wear a mask in public, or even indoors when they're inside crowded spaces. And I think those preventative measures, wearing a mask, keeping your social distance, washing your hands regularly, I think all of those things will help reduce the transmission rate across the country.
Thank you so much. And this was the NBC national correspondent, Miguel Almaguer.